Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back, Caniacs, to the Storm Cellar. We have a really cool guest today who has been very accommodating since I blew her off last week and made her get up an hour early today. So Ray is here, obviously, and we're welcoming Bailey Curtis today. So first I have to say, good morning, Ray. How are things in Calgary?
You know what? They're warm. They've been hot for a long time. Life has been a little bit on the tricky side on my end with all things going on. But I have to tell you, just like when we had LJ Camponi join us, it's really nice to have someone else who's in my time zone to experience this. And it's proof that she is as big a fan as any when she's willing to get up this early on a Sunday morning.
Sorry about that.
To bring no, it's that, you know what? There's never
it's like 10:30. What do you say it's talking about?
Yeah, exactly. There's never a bad time to talk Hurricanes.
Never.
And Bailey Curtis joins us. Bailey, thank you so much for joining us. Now, and you've heard us. What do we want to do? Do we want to let her promote her podcast first, or do we want to get into promote your podcast right now?
Sure.
And then we'll get into your background. Bailey, you could tell us all about why you are a Caniac and a jerk like us.
Yeah, so and it's just a recent kind of development too. I was recently brought on as a co-host for the Surge Cast with my wonderful co-host Zach Martin. It's been a crazy, wonderful, wild ride because I have had zero experience podcasting. I'm a very outgoing personable person, so getting into it and being that kind of like getting my radio voice on and doing all that stuff, it's been an easy somewhat easy transition, but it's been so fun. I love Zach. He's awesome. Getting
Good
to
dude.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah.
I was
the first guest on that show, by the way.
What?
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
I was episode 1, baby.
Yep. I remember that.
Nice. Ground zero.
So, yeah, and that's been the cool thing too, is when Zach was kind of starting to look for a co-host, he wanted somebody that, one, he had good chemistry with, and two, he kind of noticed that I was one of the OG supporters. Like, I was supporting that podcast before there was an episode 1, before you had the opportunity to bless us with your voice as a guest on it. But no, it's been awesome. I love Zach so much. Love being on the podcast. It's really cool. And I've never had a platform to be able to foster my love of the Canes and be able to it's given me a good outlet to get into the game of hockey and get into the Hurricanes as much as I've wanted to all my life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It is awesome.
I should have made notes, like, next time find a co-host that I gel with.
Yeah, that would have
no
saved
ticket,
him
Ray.
a lot of that would have saved him a lot of issues. Trust me, he knows the truth. And it's nice that Zach brought in the youth movement because he's like Gramps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's old. He's so old. I mean, he's just terribly old, and you bring in the youth, you bring the vibrance, you bring the jam.
No, and we talk about
podcast.
that all the time too, because we've just recently started our Forgotten Canes segment. Just kind of talking about Canes that, you know, both youth and old have kind of forgotten were once a Hurricane. And we both kind of go different routes with it. Like, he tends to go for the older, like 06 and back kind of guys, whereas I kind of focus on the newer generation because I've only been a Canes fan since 2010. Because I was like 9 or 10 years old when I first got into them, and so that's the kind of generation that I remember, and that's the kind of generation that I focus on when going back and talking about those forgotten Canes.
Instantaneously, I have a huge respect for you because you joined in at some of the leanest years that the
dark ages
had, and you stayed through it through and through. So
Mm-hmm.
cool. this is fantastic. So Bailey, what we do, we ask, favorite players, all-time type thing. What made you become a Caniac to begin with? Lay it all out for us, because we love hearing these stories that join us. And Brad's waving frantically. He wants to jump in.
I think my memory is correct. Bailey, did you not pick Paul Coffey for your all-time Caniac team?
Yes, I did.
See, she says she only goes for the new guys.
So, okay, for that, I did my
favorite
research.
player of all time.
I did my research.
She did.
So
hands down, Bailey won that, in my opinion, because her first pick, Paul Coffey out of the gate, boom.
No. My first pick was Cam Ward.
Your first pick was Cam Ward. Your second pick, I think, was Paul Coffey.
Yes.
But
yes.
Yeah. See, she has an eye for talent.
She absolutely does.
You can see Cam Ward. I mean, people can't see my background, but I've got Cam Ward hanging on my wall. So I've got to respect the man.
Absolutely.
Which kind of brings me into why I got into the game of hockey. Yep. So I played soccer from 4 years old up until I graduated high school at 18. And so when I played like the kind of youth, like U8, U10, that's where we were just kind of starting to get into use of goalies and stuff like that. Nobody on my team at that age, like U8, U10, was good at goalie at all. We were just kind of like getting a feel for the position, whatever. And I had somewhat expressed an interest in the position to my coach. I was like, yeah, no, the goalie, it seems like a pretty cool position, a pretty fun position. I think I'd like to try it out sometime. And at practice before one of our games, my coach had told me, hey, we might play around with putting you in goal if that's all right. And of course, little me, as excited as I was, started freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, am I going to be good at it? Like, I don't know. And so I go to my dad and start talking to my dad about it. My dad is the reason I'm into everything that I'm into. Whether it's hockey, whether it's music, whether it's my interests in general. And so I went to him and I was like, yeah, my coach talked about putting me in goal. And he told me the wonderful story of Cam Ward and how he came out of the woodworks as a rookie goalie. Like, he was not the starter for that entire season, and then came out during playoffs and absolutely stood on his head. He was like, when you go in goal, and I'm not saying if, I'm saying when, because your coach is going to put you in there. When you go in goal, you show everybody up and you embody Cam Ward. And I went in goal. Wow. I only made one save, but I only had one save. Like, I only had one shot put on me. So I was 1 for 1.
That's awesome.
And ever since, I've loved the game of hockey. My dad started taking me to games.
That's awesome.
And there's a funny story I'll kind of get into when I did the junior storm squad. And this just goes to show me as a younger person being like Canes and Canes only. Like, I don't care about any other team. If you're not on the Canes, I don't like you. I didn't have that appreciation for other players yet, but we were playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. And I was downstairs. I had like my Canes tattoo on my cheek. I had my junior storm squad shirt on, and my dad was down there because he was just kind of chilling out before I went up to cheer with the storm squad. And we saw Steven Stamkos there. And my dad's sitting there fangirling. He's like, oh my God, you got to get a picture with him. And my dad takes me up to Steven Stamkos and he's like, hey, can I get a picture of you with my daughter? And I look at my dad and I go, why are you making me take a picture with him? Like, no joke. And I wish I had the picture. I wish I knew where the picture was. My dad and I have been looking for it for forever.
Oh, my.
Yeah. So that's.
You put on the grump face?
Oh yeah, but I took a picture. I smiled. I was like, okay, hi.
Oh, okay.
But like, I basically like almost rejected him right in front of him. My dad was like, you shut up. Like, you be quiet. You don't know what you're talking about. And no, I look back and I was like, that's hilarious.
I would have loved to have seen a picture of you at that age going, this guy? Who's he? This Stamkos?
Yeah.
He's not a Cane? What the heck?
Yep.
That's awesome.
So that's my story. I mean, in there you kind of mentioning my favorite all-time Cane. I'm pretty sure it's kind of obvious, just kind of based on that story. I played goalie for a little bit. I was always kind of the backup after that. I had one really, really good season. And then just kind of played backup goalie if any of my teams ever needed me. But my favorite Kane of all time, one that got me into it, Cam Ward.
Great kid too.
Awesome.
I call them all kids because they're
Yeah.
I'm old. But I don't think I've ever said this on the cast. Real quick, I took a picture of Cam Ward from our seats, and it's kind of a if you can imagine the lower left corner of the photograph is the ice. There's Cam Ward. There's no other players in the picture, and then the other 3/4 of the picture is all the stadium and the fans around it. And I really liked it as a sports photographer because it kind of shows, even though he's surrounded by all these people, it's really just kind of him, right? When you're in goal, you're kind of on an island, whether you like it or not. Yeah. I waited outside practice one day. He was the last one to come out. I think everybody else had left. I think I stayed like an extra 45 minutes before he came out. And he came over and he saw me there. And you could almost tell he was like, a little bit. But he was smiling. He came over, was very cordial. I said, would you mind signing this? He was, he's like, this ain't going to end up on eBay. He was joking around. I said, if you'll personalize it, even better. I said, this is a photograph I took, explained why I took it and stuff. He asked me a little bit about my sports photography. I have that on my wall. It's one of my treasured Canes possessions because it's a one of a kind. It's my photograph that he signed to me. I love it. But and he probably spent 15 minutes talking with me about sports photography and how long I had been a Caniac and a little bit about what I had seen in my time as a fan and stuff. Super personal. Absolutely love him to death.
No, I've had one chance to meet him at a Skate with the Canes event, and then my dad, funny enough, ran into him at the airport and was able to get a picture with him. But yeah, no, he's my profile picture. Love that man. He's a fun person to talk to.
Brad, so when I do break into your place and steal that picture, it's Bailey that made me do it. He's hiring me to do it to get that picture to
I'll
give
Xerox
to
you
her.
a copy to date myself. I'll Xerox one for you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, love it.
So before Bailey tells more of her story, hot topic in Canes fandom is Cam Ward deserve to have his number retired. And I think I know what you're going to say, but I'm going to ask anyway, just to get it on record. Cam Ward had obviously Stanley Cup, Conn Smythe, had several excellent seasons with the Canes, but his full body of work is, and some of that's the team in front of him, right? Like goalies is on an island. Like, he's only as good as the rest of the team. But he had some exceptional years, and then he had a lot of pretty good but not great years. But would you retire his number?
Oh, 100% without question.
And
I'm on the fence.
Like you said it yourself. And this is a saying that I live by. A goalie is only as good as the team in front of him. You have guys that could maybe be the exception because you have some fantastic goalies in the NHL in the past. But just because of the way that he won the cup and the few years following after that, you have to put his number up.
And there's only 3 goaltenders who have done in the entire history of the league that have done what he did as a rookie, winning a cup and the Conn Smythe. The Conn Smythe, my goodness. It's early in the morning. This is 8:30. Yeah,
it's 8:30.
Exactly. It's 8:30 in the morning. So give me that one. Conn Smythe, there's only 3 others. I'm not naming the others because they belong with the team that shall not be named. But I'm telling you, he deserves to have his number up. And what I think a lot of people, and there's a lot of discussion about this, I've heard discussions about, the Yankees who retire so many numbers and stuff like that, and players that aren't in the Hall of Fame, but they retire their numbers. And they say it's a fraud to retire those numbers when they're not in the Hall of Fame. I disagree. The reason why you retire numbers with specific teams, it's the value that they were to the team.
Absolutely.
And we all, there'll be a time when in the hopefully distant future where we'll all say, man, Aho's number is going to the rafters. And there's going to be a lot of and it's their efforts with the squad are worth it. And Cam, what do you? I
feel like I'm in the minority.
He was never the problem. Yeah,
he wasn't. is in with the Hall of Fame. I'll kind of use my same argument I used for the Hall of Fame. It's not the Hall of very, very good. And when you look at Cam's body of work, I go, was he a standout? Was he among the best league wide? Was he? I've often said, if the Hurricanes had like an internal, hall of their own, like, great Canes, Cam should be in there. Like, I'm the only reason I would tell myself that they should retire his number and hang it in the rafters would be as much of the off ice things. People like Bailey, who fell in love with Cam Ward, and that aspect of growing the franchise, growing the fan base, as much as his on ice play is huge. I think you'll find a lot of people who love Cam Ward, even if they just got to see him, experience him for a short period of time, because he's just a vibrant kid, like super nice, always friendly, always, put in the effort. And so if I add in that, then I go, okay, yeah, maybe. But it's not, to me, it's not a definitive, right? Like Ron Francis, like, oh, that's an easy one, right?
Right.
Rod Brindamore, that's an easy one. Even Glenn Wesley, as important as he was to the franchise, I'm like, well, that's one that I'm not, to me, is a definite. And to me, I'm kind of taking the opposite approach of Ray a little bit of the ones that go in the rafters are ones where you ask 100 people and 99 go, yep. And Cam, I feel, is like 60-40 or, I don't know. But
that's fair.
It not to diminish anything he did, because I feel like there's a special place in Hurricanes history for Cam. But, but I'm also one who wants to see some of those old Whalers numbers retired too. So,
as am I. I'm guilty of that. And here's a question though, Brad. You mentioned his name, Rod. Rod's numbers in the stand, in the rafters rather, but he's not in the Hall of Fame.
He needs
That's
to
the Hall of Fame's problem.
He should
be. He absolutely should be in the Hall of Fame, but this is where Cam is. They have that equivalency, right? Players who are, unquestionably massive parts of the team that may not be recognized. And there's a distinct chance, and I don't know how, that Rod might not get into the Hall of Fame. He might. That would be. And it would be a travesty.
Such a black eye.
We're on the same wavelength.
Yeah, 100%. It's insane that he's not in already. I don't understand how he's not in already. So right now, that Cam's equal with Rod in that aspect. Someone who deserves to have the number up, even though they're not in the Hall.
The thing that I will say too is the way that I look at retirement, it's because you did something meanwhile and or memorable for the team. That is the way that I look at it. And you think of 06, first thing that comes to my mind besides Rod stomping with the cup is Cam Ward basically standing on his head.
That one save in the third period.
The chicken wing. Yep.
Oh my gosh. I can't even tell you, like, that one sticks in my mind. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So when I think of numbers being raised into the rafters, I think of memorable. I think of contributions to the team. And he absolutely 100% without a doubt contributed to the team while he was here.
And just an outstanding
I can't say that y'all aren't making a very persuasive argument. So who knows?
Yeah.
It's absolutely great.
Yeah. So
just poignantly thinking and basking in his greatness. Thank you, Cam. Honestly, thank you, Cam, because he, like, that whole team, I can't even tell you the pure joy that, and we all felt it, of course, but
not me, because I was 5 when it happened, but
right. But when they won that, it was like from the 80s, from my earliest days, I had wanted this franchise to succeed and win a cup. Like, they've won a cup in my lifetime, and there's Leafs fans.
A lot.
And my wife, namely, who was less than a day old the last time they won.
That counts though, right?
It marginally counts. But I at least experienced it, went through it all. It's unbelievable. So yeah, it's fantastic.
I often I didn't become a hardcore hockey fan until the Canes moved there. I mean, I love the Ice Caps.
Mhm.
We went to games, but it wasn't my one sport until then. And so for them to win it 9 years of being in Raleigh, I feel guilty sometimes because I look at other franchises, Buffalo, Vancouver, with your 50 years of nothing. And I'm like, ouch, because I know having only waited 9 years. And then I see some franchise and some fans are like, I've been watching this team for 4 years and they haven't done anything. And I'm like, it's 4 years, dude.
That's 4 years.
Yeah.
There are some teams
Cry me a
waiting 60
river.
plus. There are some teams that won or that waited 20 plus. I mean, the Avs are a great example of that. They hadn't won the cup since I was born.
Yeah.
So
Arizona coming from Winnipeg, Buffalo, and Buffalo and Vancouver stand out to me because when I say Vancouver's never won a cup, sometimes people look at me like, sure they have. Like, it's Vancouver. And I'm like, no, they haven't.
No.
Buffalo came really close, but we all know how that went down. So
yeah, it's unbelievable. I love we talking about the past, but we've got some exciting things going on in the future.
We do.
The ice is down. Did you guys see the picture?
It looks so
dope.
I'm so excited.
Shout out to whoever came up with and okayed that 25th anniversary logo.
Oh, it looks so
many
great.
hidden things in there. It is gorgeous. Love it.
Love the Easter eggs like that. I mean, it's fantastic.
The Canes with logos in general are just really, really good at that, though. I mean, look at their alternate, which is now the new home logo with that little North Carolina in between the flags.
And people are still all the time like, oh, I didn't see that.
No, I just saw that within the last few months when the jersey was announced. Like, I didn't notice that.
And it stays with the negative space aspect that the logos with this franchise in particular have always had. Like going back to the Whalers with the negative space, the H underneath the whale tails. I mean, it's awesome. It's awesome. So having that connection there too, it doesn't go unnoticed, to say the least. Having that negative space and show in there, it's awesome.
Can you believe Ray? This is for Ray Bailey. Sorry, because you haven't been alive this long. Can you believe it's been 25 years, dude?
I can't.
My mind.
It is, and I remember, and I remember the fights online and how we actually met, Brad. This is we're message boards, and me being. It's how I got the nickname that I have that I use on Twitter, my Judge Wapner thing. I was trying to be the go-between between a group of fans that loved this squad and had their team stolen from them to a group of fans that are super excited that they're getting hockey in their state. And these are all the same players. I was trying to juggle it and stuff and trying to be the go-between. It was terrible. There were a lot of
the ESPN boards during that 97, 98, 99 were brutal.
Brutal.
And
absolutely brutal.
I only imagine too, because hockey in the South is something that a lot of other hockey fans still kind of crap on.
Oh yes.
And it just goes to show how far that we've come in 25 years to show them that, not that we need to show them that we belong, but that we absolutely belong.
Yeah,
right.
The fans took such a beating and stuff like, oh, Carolina, look at that! Look at all. First, it was in Greensboro with the tarps, right?
Yep.
You need the tarps and stuff like that. Blah blah.
Blacked out the whole third upper deck.
What they don't understand is the joy that you have when you arrive at the PNC into the Holy Land, that I call it.
Yeah.
And the tailgating, the excitement, the friendship, it's unbelievable, unmatched anywhere.
I will get to see the ice for the first time in 3 years this February. So I'm very excited.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to be there for the Stadium Series game. That'll be my first game in Raleigh in like 4 or 5 years, I think. I'm super psyched.
I'm
I'm
Go ahead.
setting up a trip to kind of go see my friend, but the way that I'm getting in, like I'm getting in that Wednesday before the Stadium Series game. So I'm going to be able to go see that Montreal game at PNC on Thursday too. And I'm very excited.
I should be there as well.
I'm
Yeah.
going to be doing that too, and I'm making a special point to be there for that game because it's the team that shall not be named.
Yes.
And we're going to kick them to the curb. That's like, I will cheer so vociferously.
Yeah.
Brad might have to.
Last time I saw Montreal was in Ball Arena, and Colorado kicked their you-know-whats. So I'm looking for Carolina to do the same.
And deservedly so.
I'm going to stop calling them the team that cannot be named and start calling them the team obsessed with KK. Because it doesn't. There's a subset of Montreal fans that just won't let it go.
No.
Which is
it's
hilarious.
So hilarious. I was just talking with somebody on Twitter the other day about this, and I was like, it's so entertaining how riled up we can get them just with the mention of a player's name.
A Montreal fan posted, and I think they had a check mark. I think it might have been a Montreal, somebody who covers
insider or whatever, yeah.
And they said, blah blah blah. Well, KK was never really a third overall pick. And my response to them was, well, you picked him third, so he was in fact a third overall pick.
Yeah.
I understood what they meant, but it was just a little bit of a poke, and they didn't appreciate it.
It's just unbelievable. But this new season coming up, sorry, I got a little sidetracked with all that, but
it happens.
The new season is coming, and there's lots of new additions, and happily some, I guess, returns as far as the broadcast crew that we have. We've got a new broadcast
member,
a new member, and Trip is coming back as well. Trip is confirmed, which thank you.
I'm so happy. I'm glad he's doing better enough to feel like he can return.
Absolutely. And I bag on him sometimes because sometimes it's the same shtick piece, the TA stuff over and over.
Yeah.
But honestly, when you listen to other teams around the league,
we're lucky.
Some of them are just terrible. Just
oh my gosh,
awful.
We're looking at you, NESN. We're looking at you, Boston.
I will occasionally watch a Bruins game, and I never will listen to I refuse to listen to the broadcast. They're just Edwards is just that bad.
Edwards is terrible.
I believe it.
Yeah.
But our new member of the team, Hanna Yates, and I know Brad, you've talked about, and not entirely in jest, because I hope this happens, of inviting her on to join the show with us. That would be
100%.
That would be so cool.
I was like, if we just ask her, she'd probably say no, but if enough people retweet that, maybe she would say yes.
And it's worth a shot.
That's the thing too, is I know we potentially over at the Surgecast talked about getting Abby Labar on before everything happened. And there was many things around just like the Hurricanes League in general where like she does not podcast. People ask her to go on all the time, and it's just not her thing. She doesn't like to do them, and that's fair. Hopefully Hannah is different. But
yep. And just I had to look Hannah up a little bit. The name I recognize, but not really.
She's from St. Louis, yeah.
Coming from St. Louis. She's been a sports anchor at Channel 5 over there, KSDK. She's been their digital reporter and on-air host on 590 The Fan, hosting one of their sports radio segments. Yeah. She's been an in-game host for the St. Louis Blues for over 2 years. She's worked for the ACC network before, which I thought was kind of interesting.
Okay.
Doing some things for ESPN. So she comes to us with a hockey background, which is my main thing, because when you bring a reporter in from another sport, it reminds me of the SNL skits, if you've seen them, with Chance the Rapper, and he's supposed to be like an NBA guy, and he's having to cover hockey, and he's like, do that hockey, and he doesn't know what to say. It's the worst, right?
Touchdown.
Great skit, but it's not what I want to see. And so having somebody like Hannah come in and step in who knows hockey is a big deal, and I'm super
the resume is there, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's awesome, and love to see. That's a great hire, and even better is the fact that they're going to have an unbelievable amount to talk about because
Mhm.
we've got the ice laid down. There's been new additions to the team since we last spoke. Guys like Paul Stasney, information about a PTO that's been offered, and it's going to make this training camp unbelievable. Let's talk about it all.
Yeah. No, Calvin DeHaan potentially coming back to the team is a look that I didn't think we would be seeing this offseason.
It's definitely different, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Rick.
I should have expected it with Ryan Dzingel coming back though too. Like we're apparently bringing back old talent. I don't know what's going on.
We don't want to call them retreads just yet, but what it is and what it's going to do. I mean, look at the D line, right? Can you imagine the intensity of this training camp fighting for those last two spots? Like DeHaan doesn't come back in a enviable position,
No.
right? Like because it is going to be a very stiff battle to get those last two spots. And we say those last two spots because the first four are locked down, right? Like, I mean, that's easy to say, but where do we go from there? And there's good reasons to bring back everyone that's in line there. So we've got Ethan Bear, Derek Coghlan, Chatfield,
Dylan Coghlan,
the Chatfield, Haan, and Jake Gardnier. All of those guys fighting for two spots, and they all have good reason to be in the lineup because they bring different aspects.
Yeah.
How are they going to make that? I mean, this is going to be a hard decision to make.
Oh,
yeah.
And like we were talking about before Brad hit record too, is that we have a very capable coaching staff who is able to weed those people out. And we were saying those two people that aren't playing at their 99% are going to be cut. Like no ifs, ands, or buts. And Rod Brindamore and Tim Gleason are absolutely the two people that I would put that decision in their hands.
No question.
So.
No question.
For anybody who doesn't know, Calvin DeHaan played a little less than the season for the Canes, and I think it was 2017, 2018, something like that. When he was traded away, a lot of bad feelings there, a lot of bad blood. It feels like he, at one point on Twitter, somebody said, hey, we need defensemen. Like maybe we can bring Calvin DeHaan back. And this was in 2019. He responded on Twitter and said, I'll pass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now he's back, which to me is just wicked funny. And I said, look, in the heat of the moment, I'm sure he was upset. Not a big deal. I said, he also doesn't want to work at McDonald's. No offense to people who work at McDonald's, but he's used to making pro hockey salary, right? He wants a pro hockey job. If he's not going to get one, the team's going to come calling. He's going to come in and do his best. Another person asked, why bring in DeHaan? We already have, this traffic jam. And it reminds me, and Bailey kind of alluded to it, it reminds me of the scene of Miracle, where, they're just a few weeks away from the Olympics. They bring in the kid from Minnesota, and everybody's like, why is he here? And he's like, because that kid can play. And I feel like Rod's kind of doing that because when you look at the guys who are in those, potential 5-6 spots, they all have advantages when they're playing well. But we also know that all of them have question marks. Is Bear the Bear from before he was sick, or is he the Bear from after?
Yeah.
Can Jake Gardner be the Toronto Jake Gardner, or is he going to be the hurt back and hip Jake Gardner who shouldn't be on the ice? Chatfield, to me, is the least questionable of them all. I know what we're getting from Jalen when he hits the ice, and I'm pulling for him. I really want to.
Oh, absolutely!
I'd love to see him as part of this one.
Coghlan, I don't know about DeHaan. Has not played as well recently, and that's why he's out on a PTO, right? So the only of that group, people say, well, why haven't they bought out Gardner? They couldn't buy out Gardner. Gardner has not been, even though his doctor said he's medically cleared to play, the season hasn't started. It's the offseason. They can't do anything. He hasn't had a physical with the team. They can't buy him out until that's done. That's why Gardner's still around. Ethan Bear, they got him for a steal because he's on a one-way contract. Yep. So it's not like he can be sent down to Chicago. Chatfield, I think, is still on a two-way. He could be sent down. Yeah. I'd hate that. if you bring in Haan, like I assume that would be a two-way contract, but then a couple of these guys have to be Chicago Wolves. They're bringing them in to say, you're going to end up playing in Chicago, but we're at least going to give you the chance to make the team.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if I had to, if I had to throw a stick at it, I think Chatfield is one of those two spots because he's the one not unproven, but at the NHL level, the few games he played excellent, but he doesn't have as many question marks as the other guys.
Yeah.
So I think in my mind, there's one spot up. Who's it going to be?
Well, and here's another aspect of it, and Stasney takes it's away from the defense. The addition of Paul Stasney, the signing of him, it just with that signing, with the PTO for Haan, everything coming together, it's a clear and easy to understand statement from this team that we're shoving all in.
Yeah.
This is
I
the
will
season.
I will tell you guys a saying or something that my friend who I've actually converted to have the Canes as his second team.
There you go.
So he's Avs fan first, Canes second. He tells me all the time the way that he looks at the Canes is we're in that pinch of the hourglass. We're almost there. Like we have all the pieces set in place to do what we need to do to lift Lord Stanley again. It's just a matter of playing them correctly.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great visualization of the situation, right?
Yeah.
As we always said, the window is open, right?
Yeah.
Where everyone's got that championship window. It's where they're real contenders.
Yeah.
And this is it. And Brad and I have always spent a lot of time talking about the lines and what things might look like and so forth. When they brought in Stasney, my first thought was, A, how does this affect the cap? B, where the hell do we put him? Because
right.
he's going to be he's a great player. I really love the signing of him. I was like,
right, yeah.
Wow, we could get him. Like, this is fantastic. But it's a great addition, but where? Right?
My
first
thing
of all, how
is,
do we pay for him? But where?
Because we're still about $2 million over the cap. And so, yeah. I don't know. And my whole thing is too, with the Pacioretty signing, management's already said, we're not going to Kucherov him. He's not going to stay on LTIR till playoffs. So we know he's going to be coming back at least at some point once he is recovered and he has time to recover his Achilles. What does that say for him?
Yeah. The flip side of that would be, initially they were talking 6 months for an Achilles, which is really fast. And Pacioretty is a known fast healer, but that's fast for an Achilles injury.
Yeah.
I know management isn't intentionally going to Kucherov him. It would not surprise me if we get pretty close to the playoffs before Patches is really ready to go. Yeah. I said if he was back in March and April, I'd be happy because, January, early February doesn't seem impossible, but it's why push it, because
who knows, maybe that's why he's got all of his injury problems is because he heals as fast as he does. So maybe you give him time to recover the way that he needs to recover, and then you don't have to worry about another injury coming on for a while.
When he got hurt, it was interesting because it was doom and gloom for a few days. And my first thought was, look, he was out on IR 4 times last year. He was going to get hurt. It was just when he just did it before the season somehow.
Yep.
But as long as he's good to go for the playoffs, we don't need to win the Metro. We just need to make the playoffs, preferably in the top 4. We'd prefer to have home ice more often than not.
Yep.
But if you can get to the playoffs with a healthy lineup that includes Patches and Burns and Slavin, you're in really good shape because we've been right where Tampa was before they started actually winning cups.
Yeah.
Just on the verge. You need a piece or two. You need to toughen up a little bit, whether you realize it or not. And they did that this offseason.
Yeah.
I mean, Burns is a dinosaur, but he's a dinosaur that we're all going to love, I think, because at 37, he pulled the most time on ice minutes of anybody in the league. His ice time might drop 20% this year, because we don't have to double shift him all the time.
Yeah.
he's going to get more rest this year than he's probably gotten in 2 or 3 years.
I was going to say, do you guys know who his partner was back in San Jose?
I forget.
The thing is, though, too, is not talking about Burns's partner, but talking about Slavin's partner. Slavin actually has somebody who can competently and I guess what's the word I'm looking for? They're super disciplined at playing the position of defense, and he's not going to be struggling back there all alone anymore.
I love the use of the word competent.
Yes,
it just kind of
made me chuckle.
That was great. That was great. But Brad, a lot of experts out there are actually picking the Hurricanes as the odds-on to take the Metro again.
Yeah.
But you brought up a great question, and you kind of already answered it. But the question that I was going to ask you was, how important is it for us to be and win the division? Do we just have to get in, or do we want to do, and I've always been of the feeling that you want to be at the top of the table. You want to be at the head of the table, because if you're in a situation with a team that is a contender, you want every advantage that can be afforded to you throughout the playoffs. And because we have the best fans in the league, because we have the loudest fans in the league, I want to see as many home games as possible. Of course, I'd like to see a road win, guys.
That would be nice.
That would
be
at least
nice
one too. At least one, just one. And then we'll go from there, right? We'll start at 1, and then we'll go from there. But it was like, and you kind of said it. And you're right. The NHL playoffs I think of all of the sport playoffs has proven you just need to get your foot in the door to have the opportunity. We've seen the number 8 teams like the LA Kings win the cup, just getting their foot in the door and then catching a hot streak. What do you both think? Brad, I'll let you reiterate it if you want, but Bailey, we'll go to you first. What do you think? Do we have to be at the top of the table, or just get in?
I think in the long game of it all, I don't think it really matters. Now, as you kind of said, it would be nice to have all the advantages possible, because we already know how our team plays at home versus on the road. We have that much more of an advantage having that energy aspect of it. And I'm a firm believer in the fact that environment and the energy around you plays a lot into how you play. I think that is absolutely true with how the Canes are. And so if we can start winning that, at least the Metro, if not the East as a whole, which I would like to see, but I don't know how nice it would, like how realistic it is when you kind of start looking at all the teams that are in and what they still have left to offer. But in the grand scheme of things, when looking for a cup, all you got to do is you can have that last wild card spot and still be, I'm a contender. I'm going to do it. I'm going to win it all. And it doesn't matter what position you're at, as long as you've got the heart to do it and the heart to win it. That's all that matters.
I like her answer.
I do too.
Would it be nice? It is. And for home games, for me, besides the crowd stuff, playoff money all goes in the owner's pocket. Tom has shown he's willing to spend money. It's nice to get those home games to put some money in his pocket. Not that he doesn't have more than all of us put together, but he owns a team because he wants to make money. Regardless of what these guys say, it's nobody's out there to own a sports team and be revenue neutral. That being said, in the Metro, I think it's Canes and Rangers at the top.
Absolutely.
Unless Shesterkin plays the way he played last year, I think the Canes should take them. I mean, I think the Canes should win because he played lights out and kept them in so many games and got them so many wins by single-handedly just being a beast. Not that they're not a good team, but oh my gosh, I mean, it was
Shesterkin carried that team on his back. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
One of the greatest years a goalie's had in a long, long time.
Yeah,
and if he plays that well again, everybody's in some trouble, right? Like I still think the Canes are a better team, but if he plays like that all year, like holy smokes, and I don't think he can. Not that he's not an excellent goalie, but holy, I mean, like I said, that's just a phenomenal end-to-end goalie run that he had. So in my mind, the Penguins aren't an issue. The Capitals aren't an issue. Those teams are on the decline. I mean, those guys are getting old. The Hurricanes have done a great job of bringing in young talent. Speed is their weapon. And as somebody who studies a lot of military history and stuff, like, speed kills. I mean, when the other team is playing catch up the whole game, by the third period they're tired. You can wear them down. So
Yeah.
I don't think that they need to win the Metro. I think it would be nice. I think it'd be great if they could win the East. But Tampa Bay is getting a little older, but you can never count them out.
Never.
Paul Maurice is from Florida.
Yeah.
I love Paul individually. I think I've said that a bazillion times in my life. As an individual, I think Paul is great. As a coach, I don't expect Florida to put up the points they put up last year. I just don't see how. They also, traded away 2 guys for Tkachuk, who they brought in to deal with Tampa. Like, he's going to be a grit grinder in the corners. Not that he can't put up points, but I think they brought him in to deal with Tampa Bay.
Yeah,
which the Canes don't play that style of hockey. We're going to want to play with them up and down. They have the players to try and do that, so they're going to probably want to play us up and down, and I think we're just going to be better at it. So, I don't, I think if you finish top 2 in the Metro, you're in good shape. Because if you can't win a road game in the playoffs, it really doesn't matter whether we finish first or 8th.
Right.
Right.
Point taken. Yeah. 100%. 100%.
Got to show up. This is the 3rd or 4th year in a row that, we haven't really shown up in the playoffs. We had the Eastern Conference Finals run and then got trashed.
It's one of those,
say that, but
it's one of those things too. We're also being in the Metro surrounded by a bunch of other teams that have a lot of experience being physical in the playoffs. And I think that is the thing that helps out the Rangers the most, is they have Trouba as their captain, who is, whether it's good or bad, one of the most physical guys in the Metro. And that's going to be tough. You've also got their new add in Vincent Trocheck, who we know can be a pest on the ice. That's going to be tough.
That is going to be a very interesting.
Let them play the Capitals. Let Tom Wilson and Trouba just beat the snot out of each other.
Right, exactly.
I'm happy with that.
My goodness.
I mean, that's the big thing you guys and I think everybody has to remember is that it doesn't just come down to finishing it out. It's playoffs are a completely different beast. When it comes to the regular season. I mean, we saw that as soon as we got into round 1 with Boston. Like, I mean, physicality absolutely is going to play a big factor in how well we do. And I think bringing in Burns, I think bringing in Stasney, and I think if we can kind of edge up Svetch a little bit more, like that physicality aspect is going to help us out a lot.
Yeah. And Jarvis will probably I'm guessing Jarvis is going to put on 5-10 pounds in the offseason.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Hockey, I guess the reason it matters less to me about winning the Metro Ray comes down to, and Bailey alluded to this earlier, hockey playoffs are 7-game series, right? It's not football where it's a one and done. You can have a bad night in football and lose to a worse team.
Yeah.
In hockey, generally speaking, the better team is going to win a 7-game series.
Right.
The fact is the Rangers beat us because in Game 7 we just didn't come to play, and they did. We should have never been in that position to begin with.
Never.
So the Boston series went to Game 7, but did either of you think Boston was a better team?
Not even close.
No. It came down to Brad Marchand had 1 point in Raleigh, and he had all of his other points in Boston. In Raleigh, with last change, they absolutely shut down the Bruins' best player.
And you also got to ask the question then, too, if you take energy out of the equation, why was that? So.
That's a good point, too. My goodness. You know what? Even in a time when there's not a ton going on, no games to talk about, we've had an awesome discussion about this club. And all of that, mostly because of our guest, Brad. I mean, you and I can do a show, but it's always made better with great guests that join us in the Storm Cellar. And before we sign off, Brad, you've got things on the go that you've alluded to in the past, that you've told us about in the past. And because I'm a huge fan of what's being done, perhaps you could just
please
dive right in. Please share.
We've used the word alluded a lot today. That's a good word.
We have.
I like that.
I'm going to call this episode alluded.
Yes.
Alluded. This is alluded to Bailey Curtis.
Allegedly.
So I've mentioned before, my son is turning 9 in a month. Has gotten into hockey. Was started as a Bruins fan, I think, just to cheese that off a little bit because he would do it just because he saw me give him kind of a stink eye. He's come around, right?
Yeah.
He's got his Canes jersey. He's asking. He's interested in the whale. He's a kid who loves history. So we have been working on the new podcast I mentioned before. It's going to be the first year is going to be probably bi-weekly episodes year by year. So 26 episodes, roughly 25 years of Whalers history. We're going to go year by year through Whalers history, starting in 72 in Boston, up through 97 when the franchise moved to Raleigh. So, and he and I, Ray is going to be involved as an expert historian, somebody who can give us some anecdotes and some information that isn't things I can look up.
Yeah.
We're basing the podcast off of a book by Pat Pickens, who wrote kind of the quintessential Whalers, book. Pat has agreed to be on the podcast. That is, I don't think I've ever said that before. But I reached out to Pat and said, we're kind of basing this on your book. He liked my Twitter, my tweet. And I was like, hey, if you ever want to do a podcast, like, please come on. And he was like, just tell me when. So hopefully we will have him on maybe episode 1 to talk about the whale. I've reached out to the Whalers Booster Club, which formed after the Whalers left, surprisingly. So they have some members who have agreed to come on and share some stories.
Fantastic.
Right? If people like it, we're going to do a second season, 26 episodes, which happens to be about 26 years of Hurricanes history. What do you know?
There you go. I even
so
love that.
We'll see. We have a name. I don't want to unveil it yet on the podcast today, but my son came up with it, and it's. I mean, you two know, but that's a good
It's so great,
and it's
right?
a fantastic name. Perfectly.
He has an idea for the logo, so it will be a family-friendly podcast. Dad is in charge of the Q&A, right? Quality control or QC. But a lot of this is being driven, as a father-son project. A lot of this is about his ideas and stuff. But it's going to be a podcast that, much like I think our podcast now, Ray, an old Whalers fan from the 80s like Ray is going to be able to tune in and be like, oh, I remember that, or oh, that's not something I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Or, and Bailey, I don't know how much about the whale it hopefully will also be a podcast for people who go, I know nothing about the Whalers.
Yeah.
What do I need to know? And I don't know I don't want to say that's where you stand, but
no, that's absolutely, you nail it on the head.
They were gone before you were born, so I wouldn't expect you to know a ton. But we're hoping to make it an informative enough podcast where it's not, it's going to be a lot of general info that people might know, but there's going to be enough deep dives and hopefully some anecdotes and things from fans similar to this podcast, where we can make a connection, because those early days were rough, and Ray was there. It was Hartford fans mad at Carolina fans. You stole our team. Mm-hmm. And I got tired of saying we didn't. If you're mad, I understand your team moved. That stinks. Peter Karmanos is the enemy, not me. I'm a fan of the new team. I had nothing to do with your team leaving. Why all this, anger and angst against me? I didn't do it. If you want to be mad at Peter Karmanos, we will talk about it in the podcast. There's plenty to go around.
Mm-hmm.
Even as Judge fans, Wapner,
there's plenty to go a fan. So
as Judge Wapner, I can. That's one of the many arguments that I had backed up Brad on. You are directing your anger in the wrong direction.
Yeah,
these are fans just like you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Early, actually, it'll be in the very first episode because it happened in the very first year of the Boston Whalers. The franchise's first championship.
I can't wait. I mean, this is
the Avco Cup.
I'm so excited.
The best part about this, Brad, and I guess this kind of it serves me better because, Brad, when you talk about this, it helps explain why I myself and other fans like me are so vehement about this is history. This is part of your club. This is part of your franchise. And this is why. You know what I mean? The explanation. This is why I fight why I want to have the Whaler numbers retired in our, you know what I mean? With that Whaler logo, it's be a part of it. Why I'd love to have, Brass Bonanza be the goal song for us. I would love that because it ties everything into a nice, tidy bow. Brad, I can't
we'll
wait.
definitely do a Storm Cellar before the other podcast launches to talk about the other podcasts. But I think, Ray, you hit the nail on the head. You stayed on as a Hurricanes fan because you said it's the same team, it's the same guys.
Yep.
Carmanos at the time wanted to differentiate, right? He's like, nope, Whalers history never happened.
Yeah.
It's just Hurricanes history. And Tom,
Sickening.
and I know people say it's a money grab, and it is. Let's not deny it. Whalers Night's a money grab, but so is Military Appreciation Night. So is all the other nights.
Yeah.
So is the fact that we've had more new jerseys in the last, since Tom bought the team than we'd had in the previous 20 years.
Yeah.
Thanks to Canes Home Ice for that one. So it is a money grab, but there is also a respectfulness to it. They're doing it in the right way, in my opinion. And who doesn't want to see Svetch out there with a hairband in his hair while Blast Bonanza playing?
Oh, absolutely.
That was amazing.
So great.
So
Derek Stepan with the sweatband.
Yeah, Derek Stepan. Thank you. So we're hoping that, the Hurricanes fans who don't want to talk about the Whale, I think a lot of that came from them seeing the franchise, Carmanos, not wanting to talk about it and be like, that's ancient history. It's not. I'm hoping that podcast will kind of bridge that gap for people who like history or just like hockey. The Whalers are still so popular now. They've been gone for 25 years. They've been in Carolina as long as they were in Hartford. Longer than Hartford. You have to add Hartford and Boston together to get the same amount of time that they've been in Carolina. But there's too much to talk about. We got to wrap up. Bailey, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for getting up at the crack of dawn to do it. Ray's used to this, but you aren't. So I appreciate it from you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure.
It's
been a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me on. You guys are awesome. Appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, Bailey, you brightened the Storm Cellar for us. Great information. I love the excitement that you have, that you share. You have great taste in goaltenders. I mean, everything is great.
The next generation of hockey fans is in good shape with folks like yourself.
Absolutely, no question.
You guys are going to make me cry. Thank you.
And
we
again,
do that sometimes, honestly.
Sometimes. And remind Zach again. He's cramps. He's old. And
tell him to make sure he has his yearly physical. He's getting to that age.
You betcha. We've talked about so much. We've covered everything. We've had a great guest. Is there really anything left to say?
Go Canes!
Let's go Canes!
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.